What is up, guys? Today we're going to talk about what it's like being a skinny little crackhead. Because crack changes you. It changes you not only physically, like if you think of like a crackhead in the street, you'll think, oh, skinny, scruffy, no teeth, long hair, looks dishevelled and old and haggard, because that's how it gets you. But it also changes your mind as well, and it turns people who are good, normal, decent people into annoying little crackheads. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, crack is what is it? It's cocaine, but it's been washed up into like a form that you can smoke. I can't remember exactly how you do it. I used to know back in the day, but I can't remember now. But what you do is to wash it up, you'll get a bag of coke, you put it in water, boil the water up. I think you add bicarb as soda or something, and then you get like a rod and you stir it round and it sticks to this rod, and you end up with a big wet lump of crack, and then you put it out to dry, and once it dries you've got this big lump, and you can break bits off, put it on the pipe, or break bits off and sell it as tenner deals or whatever, and then you can put it on the pipe and smoke it instead of sniffing it. And the difference is it's straight to your head when you smoke it. It's more intense, it's more powerful, but it doesn't last very long. Now, when you when you smoke it, like if you say you buy a 20 stone, you'll break it in half, bang it on the pipe, you'll take a lick of the pipe, and it's like real intense buzz. You start sweating, you start all the endorphins get released, and you get a good little whack, depending on how good it is. These days, it's probably like 1% pure, so you need to have a big chunk stuck in your pipe, and it hardly does out, and it wears off straight away. And once it starts wearing off, like once you've hit the lick, you get all different kinds of people when they're on crack. I know one of my mates called Curtis. I think he's still at it, to be honest. I saw him the other day and he didn't look too well. Curtis used to smoke it, and he would stand at the window for hours. He'd hit a pipe, and then he'd just go and look at the window and he'd be going, shh, just looking out the window for hours on end. Then he'd come back, have another pipe, straight back to the window. And other people I've known, they'll be like rummaging around on the floor, trying to find little bits of crack what you've dropped on the floor. And everybody's different. But what happens is you have your pipe, you have your lick, and the best thing to do is buy some crack and then buy some heroin for after it to come down on. So you're going up and then you're coming down with the heroin. But my problem was I was on Subutex, so I couldn't have heroin. So after the pipe, I was wired, because when you start coming off it, the buzz starts wearing away. You start sweating, getting paranoid, feeling sticky and horrible. You feel horrible in your own skin. They call it being wired, and that's when you have to have another pipe. But when you haven't got any, that's when the desperation starts. And if you've got some heroin, like some people will put heroin and crack into a needle, mix it all together, and bang it in a vein. I've never used needles, but they call it a snowball. I imagine it's a really good buzz. But yeah, once it starts wearing away, that's when you need the heroin. But because I was on Subutex, which is a heroin blocker, I couldn't have heroin, so I was left wired and desperate. And what I used to do was I would drink alcohol. That's how I ended up becoming an alcoholic. And I would take Valium, Xanax, pregabalin and gabapentin. So every single day was like a lottery. I'd wake up, I'd have 10 Valium straight away, start drinking through the day, start hitting licks from the pipe, and this would last all day. And then I'd have like 2 strips of gabapentin, I'd have like 3 or 4 pregabs, and this was day in, day out. And then I'd have another 20 Valium. If I had Xanax, I'd have them as well. And that's why I say it's people don't believe me when I say it's a miracle that I'm still alive. I was doing that for years, and then once it starts wearing off, that's when you have your Valium, and it's supposed to like level you out, but it don't. Once you've been having it a while, the Valium doesn't really work. It just maintains your buzz. It don't. You don't get a whack off it. Like the first time you have Valium, it's brilliant. It chills you out, no problem. But when you're used to it, it doesn't really do now. So that's when the desperation kicks in. That's when you're going out. Now, I remember I would be smoking crack, and I would go out and I'd have none left. I'd be like, oh no, I've got to get some money. How can I get some money? So I would go to the local shop and I'd just walk in, just fill a bag up and walk out. And it's an awful feeling knowing that you've got to go in there whilst you're wired, whilst you're paranoid, steal a load of stuff and then walk out, and the alarms are going off, you could get captured at any minute. Oh, it's an absolute nightmare. But it changes your mind as well. I remember I've gained loads of weight because of all the beer. I mean, I've showed pictures of me before. I was massive. And that's because of the pre-gabs and gabapentin and like 20 cans of beer a day. And you can't eat proper food, so I was just eating junk food, cakes and biscuits at the end of the day. So I gained loads of weight. I was swollen and bloated. So I was a mess. I was dying. All my legs and ankles were swollen. I was suicidal. I was in a right mess. And it changes your mind as well. I remember I used to make videos on Facebook, and I thought I was being hilarious. I'd be smoking crack and then doing dance videos on Facebook. I didn't have YouTube then. And people would come up to me in the street saying, "Oh, you're funny as fuck, you." And I thought that was amazing. I'm like, yes, these people love me, but they don't. They was laughing at me. It's not like now I can make a video on YouTube and it's me, you know. It's not some crazy crackhead. And people watch the videos. Some can relate. Some can find it funny, and they're laughing with me. Whereas then they weren't. They was laughing at me. But I thought it was amazing. And this is, I'm just going to share with you the things that I used to do when I was a crackhead, how it changed my mind. I used to think, right, and I genuinely thought that if I practiced throwing fireballs, you know, those Hadouken, I go, Hadouken, and a ball of energy comes out. I genuinely thought that if I concentrated hard enough and I summoned enough chi, that I could throw a fireball. And I genuinely thought I could do this and it was going to happen. And I used to line up like beer cans, empty beer cans, so I could knock them over with this fireball. And I would just be there practicing fireballs for hours straight. And then at the end of it, I'd be covered in sweat. You know, I'd be breathing heavy and I'd just collapse on the bed. And I'd be like, fuck. And then I'd get all frustrated. And I started thinking like, what would be good to do. I remember once I had this amazing plan that I was going to go out. I was going to run into a phone box, rugby tackle the phone box, knock it over, pick it up, put it on my back, and then walk into town like some big celebrity or something. And I got everything ready. I was going to do it. You know, I went out to do it. That's how your brain changes it. I mean, there were times when I thought there was a naked cult in the back garden, and I was hallucinating as well. I was seeing the Jeepers Creepers guy with a hat and the cape floating outside my window, and all this is brought on through crack psychosis and copious amounts of Valium and no sleep, and I was in a terrible place, and this went on every day for years, and that's how it changes you as a person. You start thinking things that aren't real are actually real, and the amount of times I've overdosed. I remember when I took I can't remember how many it was, but it was a lot of amitriptyline. It was a full box, which I think, if I remember right, you get 28 plus 28, probably like around 60 tablets. And I took the lot. There was a strong amitriptyline as well, and I took the lot. And I was just like, passing out, and then I was coming around and I was talking to people that weren't there, and then I'd click on, I'd be like, I know there's no one there. But then I'd go in a trance again. I'd wake up in another room, and oh man, this is where I was at in my addiction. This is how crack got me. I was a total, absolute mess, and this went on for ages. And I was having so much Valium. See, anybody that's had Valium will tell you, you have, like, say if you had 10 Valium now, you would wake up tomorrow morning. You know what's happening in the moment, but then the next morning when you wake up, you've got no idea. Like, you can't remember a thing. Your brain's just wiped. So I was having loads of Valium every day. Like, I would have like 200, like 20 Valium a day, plus Xanax and pregabalin and gabapentin, and plus loads of alcohol. And then days would go, you know, weeks would go, months would go. And then when you finally decide to get clean, it's like all those 3 years you've been using all these cocktails of drugs, it's like it never happened. There's things that have happened in that period of time, like relationships I've had, or people that I've met, people that I've scored off, people that I've got to know. And then when you get clean from all the Valium, I can't remember none of it. I still get people now coming up to me like, oh, how you doing, Paddy? You all right? And I have no idea who they are, and they must be able to tell by the way that I'm looking at them that I've got no idea who they are, and they're like, it's me, Jimmy, or whatever. I remember he used to come and score Valium off me. I was like, fucking no idea. And it's all this stuff. It's like, the best way to put it is, it's like waking up from a coma. Like, if you get hit by a car or something, you go into a coma and then you wake up 3 years later and you've got no recollection of what happened in that 3 years. It's just gone. That's what it's like with Valium. That's what it's like. It's like I woke up out of a coma and that 3 years is just wasted. And yeah, that's how it changes you. Crack just changes you as a person. It changes you physically, because all you care about is money for drugs, and you will do things like, when I was a heroin addict, I would at least maintain some level of dignity and morals, whereas with crack it just goes straight out the window, and you'll find yourself getting desperate just to get more money, and you'll find yourself doing desperate things. And there's times when I've thought, oh, I need money now, I'm just going to run into a shop with a knife and demand the money out of the cash, because it's not about the knife and the threatening, it's about the money in the till. It's right there in front of you, and you can't have it. So how can I have it? You run into a shop with a knife. I've never done that. I've never used any violence to get what I want. But I have stole from shops, and I remember once I was, I can't remember what I'd done I got into some sort of, I think it was a football stadium, and I got in there and it was shut, so there was no one there, and I found a money tin full of money. It must have been like the ticket sales for the day. And I remember I've got it and I picked this tin up and I've like shook it. I thought, oh wow, there's money in this. And I've got away, I've opened it, and it was just full of money. There were thousands of pounds. I was like fucking buzzing, and I'm not boasting about it, but I was well happy, I'd got thousands of pounds. And I went away and I went and bought, this is how long ago it was, I bought an Xbox, and Gears of War had just come out. So I bought an Xbox, bought Gears of War, and running around with this guy. I think he's got a machine gun with a chainsaw on it, and it was a really good game. And I bought loads of crack and loads of heroin, and I just smoked crack. It was making me ill. I smoked that much that it made me sick, and I would have it. I wouldn't even enjoy it. I'd smoke it. I'd just run to the toilet, puke up, and I think about it now. It's making me feel sick because I'd smoked that much. It just wasn't. I didn't enjoy it at all. But I kept going back. I kept buying more, and I'm spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds on something that's making me ill and making me puke up, and I'm not enjoying it. So why am I keep buying it? But that's the power of the addiction, It changes people into what they're not really like. They'll do anything desperate, because that's how it gets you. So if you know someone who's battling addiction, someone that's battling alcoholism, any kind of addiction really, and they're not acting right, and you're getting frustrated, thinking, the skinny little crackheads nick me bank card, or nick this, or nick that. That's not him, that's not her, that's the addiction. That's the way it gets you. I mean, like I say, I pride myself on honesty. I would never steal anything off anyone. But it's turned me into a horrible little shoplifter, a horrible little thief, going into office buildings and trying to steal what I can. And that's what it does. That's what crack does. That's what it's like living as a crackhead. And then you've got all the public shaming, people can see what you are, sort of shouting crackhead, and everybody's pointing a finger and talking about you. That's what it feels like anyway. And then when you get clean, you've got to live with all that. You've got to live with knowing that you were that guy that stole this, and you were that guy that was laughed at. And that's why I can come on here and I can do whatever the fuck I want, because I've been embarrassed, I've been shamed, I've been ridiculed. There's nothing left. I can do anything I want. Like, most people won't do what they want because they don't want to upset him, they don't want to, maybe the family won't approve, whereas I don't care about none of that because I've already done it. I've been doing it for years, I've been embarrassing myself for years, so I can pretty much do what I want. And I can say what I want, because what are they going to do, beat me up? I've been getting beat up for 20 years. There was a point where the drug dealer, the crack dealer, was giving lay-ons to everyone except me. And I'm like, why are you always giving lay-ons to everyone but not me? And he said, listen, they know that if I give them a lay-on, if they don't pay me, they're going to get smashed. He says, but you don't care. We'll smash you in and you're not bothered. And that's what it got. That's what I was like, you know. That's how it got me. But anyway, that's the 15-minute mark. That's what it's like being a crackhead. That's what it's like in that lifestyle. It's horrible. It's miserable. But I'm out of that lifestyle now. So if I can do it, you can do it. Yeah, if you like this video, press the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Bonjour.